All right, let's dive in. We're about to go on a journey through some of the questions that really define us. From the quiet mysteries happening inside our own heads to the loudest echoes of history and all the way to the blinding edge of science. So, are you ready to explore the limits of what we know? You know that feeling, right? We have all been there. That maddening, frustrating feeling when you know a word, you can practically taste it, but you just can't find it. Well, that simple, universal feeling is the perfect place for us to start our journey of inquiry. First up, we're turning the microscope inward. We're going to dive deep into the really profound puzzles that exist right inside our own minds and bodies. And we're starting with that exact feeling of a word that's just out of reach. Turns out that feeling actually has a name. It's called the tip of the tongue state. And it's basically a glitch in our mental filing system, a temporary breakdown in how we retrieve memories. When it happens, parts of our brain, like the anterior cingulate, they light up like a Christmas tree, detecting this internal conflict and giving us that urgent, frustrating sensation that the answer is right there. Okay, from one internal mystery to another, sleep. Or maybe more accurately, the chronic lack of it. And this number is staggering. Only about 1 in 10 American teenagers gets the sleep their developing brains are desperately crying out for. And this isn't just about them scrolling on their phones late at night. There's a powerful biological force at work here. See, during puberty, a teenager's biological clock literally shifts. Their brains don't start releasing the sleep hormone, melatonin, until around 11 p.m., which is a full 2 hours later than for most adults. So when we force a teen to wake up at 6 a.m. for school, it's the biological equivalent of waking an adult up at 4 in the morning. I mean, no wonder they're so tired and moody. So from the biological codes that drive us, let's switch gears and explore the codes of human creation. How do we build things that move millions of people, whether it's the perfect pop song or a story that you just can't put down? Believe it or not, there's a classic formula behind most hit songs. The verse sets the scene, then the pre-chorus starts building that anticipation, and then, bam, the chorus hits you with that irresistible sing-along hook. Songwriters literally live by one simple rule. Don't bore us, get to the chorus. It's all about building and releasing tension in a way that our brains just find so satisfying. Now, let's shift from sound to sight. For decades, comics were kind of dismissed, right? But it turns out they are a uniquely powerful educational tool. Because they're visual, readers can control the pace, slowing down to linger on a complex idea in one panel before they move on. And you can't argue with the impact. Adding graphic novels to a library can boost its total circulation by up to a whopping 80%. From the codes of creation, let's journey back in time to the echoes of the past. How do stories and even objects from centuries ago continue to shape the world we live in today? Let's take the humble colonet. Its history is really a microcosm of our own. It's both incredible and, a lot of the time, very dark. It went from being a sacred community-building seed in West Africa to a currency for the slave trade, then a smuggled symbol of cultural preservation, and eventually a key ingredient in both Coca-Cola and military-grade stimulants. What a journey. And that journey, from a natural resource to a mass-produced product, brings us right to our modern world. Today, only about 7% of our global economy is circular, meaning we reuse and recycle materials. The vast majority is just linear. We take, we make, and then we waste. But it wasn't always this way. Let's take a look at a city that perfected the art of reuse. 400 years ago, the city of Edo, what we now call Tokyo, was a model of sustainability. It was all rooted in this concept of motenai, or no waste. Everything had a second, third, or even a fourth life. Houses could be taken apart and moved. Kimonos were repurposed over and over until they were literally ashes. And even a broken piece of pottery was reborn as art through a practice called kintsugi. But history isn't just about objects and economies, it's about people and their legacies. And let me tell you, few legacies are as fiercely debated as this one. Was Alexander the Great really all that great? Well, it completely depends on your perspective, doesn't it? Was he a heroic liberator who spread a new age of culture across the known world? Or was he a power-hungry tyrant whose conquests left a trail of utter destruction and whose empire immediately fractured the second he died? The truth is, history is rarely simple, and his story is a perfect example of that complexity. This whole debate about good and bad serves as the perfect gateway to our next section, the moral maze. let's move from the tangible past into the abstract world of philosophy to tackle some of our most complex ethical dilemmas. To do that, let's try a little thought experiment. So, meet Jojo. His father is a brutal dictator, and Jojo has grown up entirely within the palace walls, in a world where his father's cruelty is celebrated as strength. This is the only reality he has ever known. So, when Jojo grows up and becomes just as cruel as his father, here's the crucial question. Is he fully to blame? Can we hold him morally responsible for his actions when his entire sense of right and wrong has been so profoundly warped since the day he was born? Well, philosophers are completely split on this. The deep self view says, yes, he's responsible. His actions come from his truest values. It's like a tree that grows crooked because it was planted on a slant. But the philosopher Susan Wolf, she disagrees. She argues he lacks moral competence. He never had a real chance to learn right from wrong. Kind of like a colorblind person being asked to describe a rainbow. You know, this whole question of our inner state brings us to the ultimate puzzle, consciousness itself. It's not just being awake, it's that subjective, internal movie of your life. Think about a cup of coffee. Science sees chemicals and neurons firing, but you experience the rich smell, the warmth, the taste. That inner experience is consciousness, and honestly, it remains the biggest mystery in all of science. And for our final section, let's see what happens when these huge philosophical questions collide with the hard realities of science and technology. And we're going to start with a classic of science fiction. We all know what lasers look like, but how do they actually work? Well, it boils down to a process called stimulated emission. Imagine a room full of electrons, all of them buzzing with extra energy. If you hit just one of them with a particle of light, a photon, it releases a second photon that's a perfect identical twin of the first. And this kicks off a massive chain reaction, creating a powerful, organized beam of light. Yeah, unlike a light bulb, which just sprays messy, multicolored light in every direction, a laser is disciplined. It's a single color, and all its light waves travel in perfect lockstep. This is what gives it its power, but it's also why those sci-fi blaster battles are so unlikely. The huge amount of energy needed would generate incredible heat, and our own atmosphere scatters light, which would weaken the beam anyway. So, we've journeyed from the tip of our tongues to the edge of the galaxy. From the codes inside our bodies to the echoes of our past. We've seen how every answer seems to unlock a dozen new questions. And that just leaves one final, crucial question for you to consider. What will you be curious about next?